They're just friends. This is Easy Dufek on Maróczy channel, and today I will show you interesting way how to play white-white against the Sicilian Dragon. I will show you the game Cheparinov Amin, which was played in Zagreb 2018. Now, let's start. And I will explain something about Maróczy structure. e4, c5, knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d4, g6 is very popular nowadays because I think the black pawn found a very interesting way how to play even against knight c3 or even against c4. Bishop g7, bishop e3, knight f6, knight c3, short castle, bishop e2, d6, short castle, bishop d7, which is starting point of Maróczy bind in a Sicilian Dragon. And now Cheparinov played h3, which is not exactly true, because the same position can arise from Sicilian Defense, which is in fact happened in this game, because in game was played Sicilian Defense, d4, knight f6, c4, g6, knight c3, bishop g7, e4, d6, h3, short castle, bishop e3, white waiting for e5 and waiting with move knight f3 for a while, c5, and just now he played knight f3. C takes d4, knight takes d4, knight c6, bishop e2, bishop d7, and short castle, and we just transpose the position in our game. But in fact, it doesn't matter if in this position is played h3 or it will transpose from kings in the end. But if you are e4 player, then and you place Maróczy bind for a white, then in fact nearly everybody plays in this position this very long and theoretical line: queen d2, knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop c6, attacking this pawn twice. Then white has to play f3. Well, we see difference. There is no pawn on h3. He must play f3. And after a5, b3, knight e7, try to exchange the bishops, bishop e3, knight c5, rook ab1, queen b6, rook fc1, rook fc8, rook c2, queen d8, with something like h5, queen b7, maybe queen h8, and so on. And this line was played hundreds of times with quite, I think, good results for black. Even I tried to play this way a dozen times. And even in this main line, black can try to use some interesting idea like bishop e5, for example, in this position, and a6 and queen e7, for example. But after queen d2, I think because 100 games was played, then both players knows their structures and ideas and so on. But with h3, the new problems are on the board. As we see, there is difference between h3 and queen d2 in the main line after queen knight takes d4, which was played by Amin. It's interesting, but very often black plays a6, which is interesting attempt to sidestep to knight takes d4. But in the game Grandelius Sviridov in Minsk 2017, Grandelius was very well prepared and played the most precise move, knight f3. And he simply got a better position. After rook c8, rook c1, queen a5, a3, covering b4 square, and maybe sometimes b4 is on the agenda. Bishop e6, attacking this pawn, which is sensible because now b3 is impossible because h3 will hangs, knight d5, knight d7, and now bishop d2, queen d8, and b4. And we see that white got really everything which he can get in Maróczy. He has a lot of space. He controls center and inside with his pawns. He didn't exchange any piece, mainly the knights, because this is a very important idea for black in Maróczy to exchange one pair of knights. And in fact, he was very quickly winning after a5, knight f4, knight d4, knight takes d4, knight takes e6, bishop h6, bishop g7, bishop e3, ab, knight f6, bishop f3, and e5. He now just break pawn structure with the c5. And after queen h8, queen b3, white has had overwhelming advantage, and he won a very good and nice game. That is why the main idea is knight takes d4, and the basic question, what is wrong with this move? More or less nearly anything, but bishop d4, nice, bishop c6. And now, as we saw, in this position, white was forced to play f3, but in our position after bishop c6, we played h3, and now we covered this square, and now we have still queen on d1, and we can simply cover this pawn with move queen c2. And now it's not so easy to play with black. Amin played standard move a5 because he thought, I think that right way, that b4 is very unpleasant. But in a game Arnaud of Jakubiec, Germany 2018, Jakubiec played knight d7, and after exchanging on g7 and b4, we see that b6, rook a d1, very simply, very nice positional advantage, a space advantage. He controls everything, and allowing b4 for black is, I think, it's some kind of error, strategical error, because now, in the future, white can play c5, or even, in some case, not exactly in this position, but he can support his queenside initiative with b5 and a5 and opening a file. a6, a3, queen b8, knight d5, rook e8, rook f1, queen b7, bishop g4. White is simply much better, and after knight f8, queen c3, f6, f4, black position is terrible because e5 with opening everything on black king is more or less decisive, because after bishop takes d5, I think in this position even both taking are available. After cd we see a very weak c6 square, and because we control c8 squared, white has a very big advantage. After ed it's similar, but after doubling rooks on e5 and trying to open this king side, and black must be much worse. Amin played a5, which still looks absolutely normal, and it was played in a lot of games. But we see the small difference, because after rook a d1, knight d7, still compare with this, when the bishop g7 is not a good move, because black has simply time to play knight c5 and queen b6 and so on. But in our position after bishop g7, king g7, white can play a surprisingly strong move, bishop g4, attacking this knight. And now there are some ideas like e5 and c5 in the air. Amin played knight e5, which is still the most played move in a position. In another game between Andrekin and Gavin Jones in Reykjavik 2016, and Jones is a very strong player, but he has big experience in dragon structure. He played knight c5, but even after this move, e5 is very strong. Now this pawn is pinned, as we see. f5, bishop e2, knight e6, rook f1, queen c7, ed, ed. And we see that black must be simply worse. The pawn structure is terrible. Yeah, there are a lot of holes in a black position. And after knight d5, bishop takes d5, rook takes d5, knight f4. Try to get some counterplay on black squares. Knight c3, rook f6, rook b5. Nearly first line of computer engine. Rook e8, bishop f1, rook takes e1, queen takes e1. We see that this knight is very shaky on f4, and white wants to play something like g3 and probably something like bishop g2, and don't forget that now this pawn is attacked. And after b6, queen e3, we double attack on f4 and b6. And Andrekin was winning because he was winning a pawn and won in 48 moves. Very important game for this line. And Amin played knight e5, which for when the forcing line started with c5, just using the same fact. This pawn is pinned on a black queen. Knight takes g4, hg, queen c8. Yeah, using fact, of course now this pawn is hanging. But things are not so simple because after cd6, queen takes g4, de7, rook f8, everything is forced. Now of course, if black is still fast to take on e7, then black is okay. But now, knight d5, not only covering this pawn, but knight c7, and even queen c3. There are threats. Bishop d5 forced, queen c3 check, king g8. And now, of course, rook takes d5 is impossible, because, of course, both pawns are hanging, queen e4 and queen e7, or something like this. But ed and rook takes e7, even one more move, d6 and rook d7. And this was forced from move 15. It means 8 moves were forced. Rook e7. And maybe we should now ask how big advantage white has. And I think very big, because this pawn, of course, is pass pawn, just only 2 squares before queening. And white needs, of course, support this pawn with something like this. And how to continue next? Because the queen side is quite stable for black. It means that white must look for another target. Just there is only one target in the position, and this is just black king. It means that white must open black king side. It means to open and attack these pawns. And attacking these pawns is just possible, just only way. In the longer run, prepare something like f4 and f5, just to play f takes g6 and just open to f file after f takes g, or just make another weakness on f7 after taking with hg pawn, h pawn, rook d5, queen b4, queen e5. Of course, white needs to stabilize this pawn. it can be, this pawn can be attacked 3 times, then we need to defend 3 times. A4, simple idea to make A3, open queenside and exchange as many pawns as possible. A3, stop, A3, and in some way to block these pawns, and these pawns started to be slight weakness. Queen b6, rook e1, with idea queen f6 and rook e7, and of course just to attack this pawn. Rook a d8, pawn is attacked and it's time to defend it. Queen c6, king h2, and now white will prepare just moving this pawn forward, but it still needs some preparation. Queen c4, rook d4, queen c2, rook d2, queen b3, queen d4. Now there is no way how to attack this pawn, because black would be happy to play something like this, but now b6 square is of course forbidden for black queen, and now we see that this queen in fact doesn't have any good square. It's some kind of locket on this bad square. h6, rook e2, just very unpleasant. Rook e7. Oh, just not now, because after taking it can be slightly problematic. H7 and f4, and white is prepared just to march with this pawn forward and open to black king position. b5, rook e4. It's very nice how to even simply defend and any counterplay on the fourth rank and prepare, I think, on the black king. Queen c2, rook e7, queen c6, queen e5, h5, and f5. And just black king side just collapsed. Rook e7, and now of course immediate check, fg6, fg first, queen e7, king h6. And it's very nice how, if one calculate until end, queen g5 check, king h7, queen takes d5, queen takes d8, queen takes d5, and now very nice queen c7, covering this diagonal, and after king h6 he can play d7, and because this diagonal is covered, there is no any queen e5 check with the perpetual. And in fact, after queen c7, black resigned. I think that whole idea with h3, which arises just directly from Sicilian Maróczy, or even from Sicilian Defense, as Ivan saw in this game, then I think that this idea h3 is very dangerous for black, and it's not so easy to defend without enough knowledge, and even very strong players, as we saw, Cheparinov, Jakubiec, even Gavin Jones, Amin, they didn't solve all problems and lost their games. Thank you for watching, and see you next time. Bye bye.